alaikum. I think now we are in a position to start the lecture. One brief announcement. On Friday, we're going to have a short quiz. अगली बात भी सुने, देखो मेरी बात सुनो, अगली बात तो सुनो, ये एक सर्वे क्विज मैं ले रहा हूँ, ठीक है। सर्वे क्विज का मतलब ये है कि हो सकता है मैं आपको ग्रेड ना करूँ इस पर, देखो अगर तो आपने अच्छा परफॉर्म कर लिया मैं आपको ग्रेड कर दूंगा, लेकिन ये क्विज मैं आपसे ज्यादा अपने लिए ले रहा हूँ, वो इसलिए कि मैं अनसर्टेनिटी प्रिंसिपल के बारे में कुछ कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्वेश्चंस हैं जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रहा हूँ। ये बॉल पॉइंट को ना करें ऐसे, कुछ कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्वेश्चंस हैं अनसर्टेनिटी प्रिंसिपल के बारे में, उसमें कोई न्यूमेरिकल नहीं होगा, कोई न्यूमेरिकल काम नहीं, लेकिन देयर आर 6 or 7 conceptual questions that I would like to pose to you, and I would like you to write the answer in English or in Urdu, whatever you prefer. But I would like to test your understanding of the uncertainty principle. And what does it mean by randomness? We say that there's randomness in the fabric of the universe. There is uncertainty, but tossing a coin is also uncertain. You toss a coin, you can't tell whether heads will show up or tails will show up. But is there some difference between quantum uncertainty and our classical notions of uncertainty? So there are a few questions that I have phrased. It's very difficult to ask the proper question in modern physics because the answers are so counterintuitive and surprising that asking the properly formulated questions is even more difficult. So making a quiz is more difficult than you giving a quiz or taking a quiz. So it's going to be a survey quiz. I may or might not grade it, but you should not worry about it. I would like to test your concepts on the uncertainty principle and whether I've been able to deliver the concepts. And there are many things that I haven't said in the class, but I would like those ideas to go across. That's why I'm taking this सर्वे क्वेश्चनएयर ऑन फ्राइडे। उसके बाद लेक्चर हम कंटिन्यू करेंगे। देयर विल बी इनफ प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग सेशंस, डोंट वरी अबाउट दैट, इन नवंबर बिफोर योर मिड टर्म एज वेल। सो टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट वेव इक्वेशंस। So now we know that there are things called matter waves, and likely candidates of matter waves are these localized wave packets, and we've used the Fourier theory to construct these wave packets, and from the Fourier theory we've derived the uncertainty principle, which is simply delta x delta p is greater than or equal to h bar over 2. This is something we all know about. Before we go on to onto the wave equation, there is one thing that I forgot to mention in the previous lectures. If you remember, I talked about position and momentum. Both of them are conjugate variables. You know one, you don't know the other. That is, the predictability of one goes up, the unpredictability of the other goes up. That's what the uncertainty principle tells us. So momentum and position, they are conjugate variables, and you cannot increase the precision of both of these variables in one go. You can perform an experiment that increases the precision of x, and then you can perform another experiment, or the same experiment is repeated another time and you can measure the momentum. That's very possible. But there is an alternative relationship, and that is between energy and time. Now suppose you have a particle. Remember the pitfalls of using the word particle, but let's stick to convention and say that we have a particle of energy E, purely kinetic. E is given by p square over 2m, and what we would like to do is to find the energy of this particle. So instead of measuring the momentum, we want to measure the energy of the particle. So what do? We shine light on this particle, and light carries an energy hf. So what would happen? This photon will scatter off from the electron, from the particle, and the particle will in fact suffer some recoil. So the particle will recoil. Now what I would like to do, I would like to tell what the uncertainty in the energy of this particle is. I'm measuring the energy, so what's the uncertainty in the energy? If I write delta E, which is the uncertainty in the energy, this will simply be equal to 2p over 2m delta p. You take the differential of this. This is the uncertainty in energy arising from an uncertainty in the momentum. And why is there an uncertainty in the momentum? Because this incoming photon possesses some momentum, and it kicks the electron, it transfers its momentum to the electron or the particle, and there is an uncertainty in the momentum. We already know that the very act of observing disturbs the system. So the momentum of this particle becomes uncertain by delta p. And when the momentum gets uncertain, the energy gets uncertain, because the energy and momentum are related. अब ये uncertainty in the energy. Now this uncertainty in the energy is physically manifest in this electron suffering some recoil. So suppose this recoil is delta x. Suppose this recoil is delta x. So delta x is the uncertainty in the position, delta x. And what is the uncertainty in the position equal to? The uncertainty in the position equals the velocity of this recoiling particle multiplied by the time. And which time are we talking about? This photon comes in and it interacts with the electron, and we are making a measurement of the energy. So that measurement requires a certain period of time, a certain length of time. When we want to measure the energy, it should span over a certain length of time. Suppose you have a sine wave, and you want to find its energy, which means you want to find the frequency of this wave. Now you need to let this waveform continue in time for a certain period of time. Suppose your observation time is just restricted to this interval. This is your delta t. By looking at the waveform during this time interval, will you be able to tell what the frequency of this wave is? No, because what you will really see is just a blip like this. In order to tell what the wave looks like and what is its frequency, you will have to let your measurement run over a certain period of time, so that you gather enough cycles of this wave. Agreed? So every measurement costs time. You want to measure something, it takes time. And the more precisely the energy you would like to measure, the longer would it take. So exactly in this case, if you would like to measure the energy of this electron, it takes a certain period of time, and that period of time I'm calling delta t. Now delta x is Vx times delta t. Vx is the velocity of this particle which is given to it by the incoming photon, and Vx we all know is p over m, the momentum divided by the mass. So now we have a relationship between delta x and delta t, and we have a relationship between delta E and delta P. So now let's invoke the uncertainty principle. We know that delta x times delta P is greater than or equal to h bar over 2. Now let's use the relationships that we've derived above. We have delta x equals p over m delta t, and delta p equals 2m over 2p delta E. So this is delta x, this is delta p, delta E delta t must be greater than or equal to h bar over 2. So now what we gather from this result is that completely analogous to the position momentum uncertainty is the energy time uncertainty. That is, energy and time are conjugate variables. If we would like to measure the energy of this particle with arbitrary precision, that is with a very high precision, that is if we want to reduce delta E, we would have to make a measurement over a longer period of time. This delta T must go up. So precise measurements of energy require very long measurement times. So this is an analogous relationship, and both of these statements, the one that I've written in boxes, they qualify as the uncertainty principle. And a very important consequence of this relationship is the following. Suppose I have an atom in which there are two energy levels. E1 and E2, and there is an electron sitting in the ground state. A photon comes in, the electron is absorbed and goes to the higher state. Now it can't stay in the upper state for arbitrarily long periods of time, it will decay, and that's the Einstein's A coefficient that we've studied. Now when this electron will decay, do we know how long will it stay in the excited state? Can we predict? The excited state will have a certain average lifetime. So when it decays, it emits a photon. It emits a photon of a certain frequency. But is that frequency precise? If we would to look at the spectrum of the emitted radiation, this is the frequency axis. Suppose this is omega naught, the energy separation between these levels. We would expect to see a sharp peak at omega naught. That is, the emitted photons will have a frequency omega naught, because that is what the energy separation is telling us. But only if the electron, now this is a precise energy, agreed? If we precisely know omega, the frequency omega, which is omega naught, we precisely know the energy, agreed? क्योंकि E इक्वल्स h बार ओमेगा। आप बातें कर रहे हैं, आपको समझ भी आ रही है या आपको समझ नहीं आ रही इसलिए बातचीत कर रहे हैं? देखें, अगर ओमेगा नॉट प्रिसाइज है यहां पर, we precisely know the frequency of the emitted photon, which means we precisely know the energy. If omega naught is precise, then the energy is precise at h bar omega naught. But in order to make such a measurement possible, the uncertainty relationship tells us that delta t must be infinite. If delta E is 0, there is no uncertainty in the energy, delta T must be infinite. And delta T infinite means it should take an infinitely long period of time to measure this precise energy. This is exactly the argument that I gave above. If you would like to precisely know the frequency of this wave, we would have to measure it for an infinitely long period of time, because it is very possible that changes in the frequency appear over long periods of time. So you can have a wave that goes like this, and it slightly changes in its frequency. So this time period is different from this time period. In order to make this judgment that the frequency is changing, that there is a spread in the frequency, you have to take a measurement over a very long period of time. Exactly in an analogous way, if we would like to measure such a spectrum, we would have to make a measurement over an infinitely long interval of time, which means that the electron must stay in its excited state for an infinitely long length of time. But if it stays in its excited state for an infinitely long period of time, it will never emit a photon. So there is a cyclic paradox here. So what really is happening is that when an electron is excited, it on the average has a certain lifetime. It decays after a nanoseconds or a picoseconds or a microsecond on average. And when it has a finite lifetime, this delta t is finite. It's not infinity. When this is finite, then your delta E must be greater than h bar over 2 delta t. If this is finite, this cannot be 0. This has to be greater than 0. This has to be positive. Only if delta t is infinite can this be equal to 0. So when delta t is finite, when this number is a finite number less than infinity, delta E is greater than 0. There is a spread in the energies, and the spectrum that we will obtain will not be a sharp peak at omega naught, rather it will be a broad peak. So this is the peak that we will obtain, and the width of this peak tells us that there is some uncertainty in the energy. There is a frequency spread. So the photons that are emitted, even though we intuitively think that all of them must have the same energy omega naught, the same frequency omega naught, they don't. There is a spread in the frequencies, and that spread comes out because of the uncertainty principle. So all the spectrums that we obtain, they're not sharp lines, rather they are lines that are spread out in the frequency domain. And this broadening of lines is called natural broadening. And this has nothing to do with whether you're using a sophisticated spectrometer, an expensive instrumentometer, or a low-cost homemade spectrometer. It has nothing to do with the instrument. It's a natural property that comes out because of quantum mechanics. It's a property of nature. Every spectral line will be broadened. And when will this peak be sharper? ये पीक शार्प कब होगी? जब डेल्टा टी ग्रेटर होगा, यानी जब लाइफ टाइम लॉन्गर होगी. सो देयर आर स्टेट्स such a spectral line versus a spectral line that is sharp. This comes from a fast decay. Such a line comes from a fast decay. That is, delta t is short. The lifetime is short. And such a line comes from a slow decay. For example, from a metastable state. And delta t is long, or the lifetime of the state is long. जी इसका मतलब भला क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है कि if you have a single photon that is being emitted, suppose one photon is being emitted at a time, when you are making a measurement, it's a very good question by the way, when you are making a measurement of that single photon and you measure its frequency, that photon might have a frequency equal to this, it might have a frequency here, it might have a frequency here, it might have a frequency omega naught, a frequency here, a frequency here, a frequency here. So it can have frequencies that are different from omega naught, but the spread will look like this. If you repeat the experiment a large number of times, most of the photons, the highest number or the highest occurrence of photons will be at the frequency omega naught, and this will be a Lorentzian shape. This is what the distribution will look like. What it means in retrospect? What does it mean in retrospect? It means that even though these energies are precise, these energies are really precise, these are fixed values, there is no blurring in this energy. This is a precise value. ये energy blur नहीं हुई, यानी this is a level, this level is not a smeared out level, it's a precise level, a precise energy, it's a fine energy level. और ये level भी blur out नहीं हुआ हुआ, it's a precise energy. Yet when we are making a measurement, we are disturbing the system. And that is what the hallmark of quantum mechanics and the uncertainty principle is that when we measure the system, we are disturbing the system. And as a result of that disturbance, we get a spread of frequencies. But that does not retrospectively tell you that these energy levels are smeared out. They are precise energy levels. They are called stationary states. ठीक है? कुछ जवाब मिला? अच्छा, अब हम वेव इक्वेशन की बात करते हैं. देखिए, क्लासिकल वेव्स के लिए if you have sound propagating through a medium, if you have sound propagating through a medium or a wave on a string or water waves, there is a certain equation that describes wave motion. That is called the wave equation. Have you studied any wave equation in the first year? What about electromagnetic waves? उनकी wave equation study की थी? हाँ या ना? एक ही दो जवाब हो सकते हैं. सॉरी, देखो, मैंने आपसे पूछा, आपने वेव इक्वेशन का मुताला किया? पढ़ाया क्या आपको? पढ़ाया गया, पढ़ा नहीं. अनसर्टेन. तभी और आगे ना बढ़ाऊं. ऑलराइट, सो आपने वेव इक्वेशन पढ़ी हुई है, पढ़ाया गया आपको? बताओ। अच्छा, मुदस्सर इन्होंने पढ़ा हुआ वेव इक्वेशन? अच्छा, एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अ वेव इक्वेशन. व्हाट इज अ वेव? देखो, वेव के बारे में भी बहुत सी बहस चलती रहती है, बट आई कैन टेल यू द बेसिक्स ऑफ अ वेव. So this is one possibility of a wave. This is the x-axis, the space axis. This is some displacement. It could be pressure, it could be the number of particles, it could be the height of a point in water. So this is a picture of the wave at time t equals 1. Now this wave moves in space and it moves in time. So at some other later time, this wave may have advanced forward. So we are plotting a snapshot, we're taking a picture in space at different times. And then at another time, this wave may have moved forward in space. So this is a traveling wave. We can also have standing waves. Now this wave is described by a mathematical function. Suppose this axis is called the y-axis. This mathematical function is a function of x, space and time. If you're talking about 3 dimensions, the function will be a function of the position vector and time. Or you could also write y is a function of x, y, z and time. An example is a sine wave. I draw a sine wave. So this axis is the space axis. This is the picture of the wave at a certain period in time, a point in time. At another later time, this wave may have advanced forward. So the new picture that I get will look something like this. This is a picture of the wave at some other time. After another lapse of time, I get a newer picture. So there will be a mathematical form for this wave, for this traveling wave. We've already looked at it a large number of times. So what is the mathematical form for this wave? It's some amplitude A. अब मैं जिससे पूछूं वो मुझे बताने की कोशिश करे. आप बताएं, आप बताओ इसकी मैथमेटिकल फॉर्म क्या है इस ट्रैवलिंग वेव की? साइन साइन ओमेगा टी. कोई पोजीशन पर कोई डिपेंडेंस नहीं, वो क्या है? सिर्फ चलो x की बात करें, इट्स वन डायमेंशनल वेव. xt ये बहुत दफा देख चुके हैं हम, इस कोर्स में भी देख चुके हैं. आप बता सकते हैं, आप आखिर में जो बैठे हैं? हाँ बता, कोई आप में से कोई बता दे. बता anyone over there in this right wing? ये तो हम इतनी दफा देख चुके, तफसील से देख चुके हैं इस चीज को. So this is an example of a wave which is traveling in space and is traveling in time. It's a function both of position and time. You see, your inability to understand this makes me go to the back seat. It dampens my spirits a little bit, because these are things that should be on our fingertips. They have nothing to do with any course that you've studied. These are general notions in physics that we should all be aware of. All engineers, all scientists should be aware of. So this is a traveling wave. Now this function satisfies an equation, and that equation is called the wave equation. And the wave equation for a vibrating string, or the most general form of a wave equation in classical mechanics, is the following. This is a wave equation, G. Sorry, V square. This is a wave equation. Now, can you prove with this function that this function satisfies this equation?
So ये equation है क्या basically? क्या हम बात कर रहे हैं? तो वो तो थी ना classical wave की equation.
Classical wave की equation नहीं थी, ये classical wave की form है. This is the form of the classical wave. The wave now satisfies an equation, and that equation is called the wave equation. In physics there are only 2 or 3 kinds of equations. The wave equation, the heat equation, which is the diffusion equation, and there are only 2 or 3 kinds of equations that work in physics mostly. This is one of them. It's a very fundamental equation. Now, your question is, what does this equation really mean? We can answer that question by looking at the function. Suppose this function solves this equation. Now, I would like you to tell me that indeed this is a solution of this equation. Can you substitute the value of y into the left hand side and right hand side and see if this is a solution? Please try that out. दिखाओ क्या कंडीशन क्या होनी चाहिए?
सर इसको डिफरेंशिएट दोबारा डिफरेंशिएट किया, इसको विद रिस्पेक्ट टू टी किया, इसको विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एक्स किया. अब वो ओमेगा बिकॉज वी हैव दिस इज द फ्रीक्वेंसी, तो वी स्क्वायर से डिनोट करना है. तो ये फॉर्मूला सर हो जाता है.
ये तो वी स्क्वायर लिखे हैं यहाँ पे, और बताएंगे कि अपने कर सकते हैं इसको वेरीफाई की सोल्यूशन है. ये टाइम और एक्स इंडिपेंडेंट है, ये जीरो है.
इसी तरह करना है, डबल डिफरेंशिएट करना, लेकिन ओमेगा को v की टर्म में कर देना.
वो मैं बताता हूँ वो कंडीशन निकलेगी ऐसे कंडीशन. Okay. So let's take the left hand side. The left hand side is partial y over partial x of partial y over partial x, and partial y over partial x is a k cosine kx minus omega t. Alright, you differentiate with respect to x again, you get minus a k squared sine of kx minus omega t. And let's look at the right hand side. It's very easy, it's just a one liner. The right hand side is 1 over v squared times the second derivative with respect to y, with respect to time, that is the partial t minus a cosine of minus omega a cosine of kx minus omega t, and you differentiate with respect to time again, get minus a omega squared over v squared sine of kx minus omega t. कोसाइन को डिफरेंशिएट करें माइनस साइन आता है, माइनस माइनस से मल्टीप्लाई होके प्लस हो जाएगा, लेकिन यहां पर माइनस है, तो यू गेट अ माइनस हियर. सो आर द लेफ्ट एंड द राइट हैंड साइड इक्वल? Provided they are equal, provided we make the identification that k squared equals omega squared over v squared. That is, k squared equals omega squared over v squared, or k equals omega over v, or v equals omega over k. And this is simply the phase velocity that we've measured so far. So the phase velocity of this wave, how many components does this wave have in the Fourier analysis? How many frequencies and how many k's or how many omegas does it have? Just one, k and omega. So the phase velocity is a valid concept for this wave, and the phase velocity is omega over k. And we know that the phase velocity is omega over k by just looking at the argument of the sine function. Hence, if we are able to make this identification, that is k equals omega over v, then the left hand side and the right hand side are equal. Which means that this equation is satisfied by this solution. And what is this solution? This is a mathematical form of the wave. And this is the equation that satisfies it. So this is the wave equation and this is the wave. ये wave है और ये wave equation है corresponding. Now one can derive this wave equation. One can derive this wave equation. For example, if you have a string that is vibrating, you can derive this wave equation using Newton's laws. So this wave equation can really be derived from fundamental principles. So this is the motivation for the need for having a wave equation. Now why do we need a wave equation in quantum mechanics? Because in quantum mechanics we have matter waves. In quantum mechanics we studied that whenever we have matter, there is a wave associated with it, or there is a field associated with it. And that field must also satisfy some equation. So that particular equation is a wave equation in quantum mechanics and is called the Schrödinger equation. अच्छा, एक बात मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं कि इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फील्ड्स के लिए, फॉर इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फील्ड्स, दिस इज द वेव इक्वेशन. This is the wave equation for electromagnetic fields as well. What should y be equal to? What is y in the electric field, in the electromagnetic wave? Y is the electric field. So what is waving in an electromagnetic wave? It's the electric field. In a sound wave, what is waving? It's the pressure at a particular point in space and time. It's the pressure that is waving. In a wave, there has to be something that is waving, and that object that is waving appears here. So in an electromagnetic field, y is replaced by the electric field, and this v is replaced by the speed of light, c squared. V squared becomes c squared, and this is the second time derivative of the electric field. So this wave equation applies to electromagnetic waves as well. But now we have entered the quantum realm, and we're looking at how the matter wave changes with time and in space. And what's the equation for this? Now, unfortunately or fortunately, the wave equation for quantum mechanics, which was motivated by Schrödinger, cannot be derived. It cannot be derived. It can only be stated. So what is more fundamental? Whether the wave equation, the classical wave equation, is more fundamental or Newton's laws? Newton's laws are more fundamental, and you cannot derive Newton's laws from any other simpler axioms. This is something that is fundamental. F equals ma को derive नहीं कर सकते, इसको test कर सकते हैं आप, उसको motivate कर सकते हैं, लेकिन इसको derive नहीं कर सकते from something simpler. This is like an axiom. Starting from this axiom, you can derive the wave equation in classical mechanics, but you cannot repeat the same procedure for the Schrödinger equation. And let me write the Schrödinger equation in its simplest form for you. In its simplest form. Okay, half a minute for you to understand what this means. And I क्या है? So this is the simplest form of the Schrödinger equation that I can think of. It's even more complicated, और वो हम इसकी complications को भी study करेंगे. अब this equation is a wave equation, and it frightens all of us. It has enough in it to scare us off from modern physics. And why does it frighten us? It frightens us because there is a preponderance of notation. This psi is something new, but psi is just a conventional variable. Okay? Psi is a Greek alphabet, so you can have y here, you can have x here, you can have z here, but psi is just conventional, and psi is the matter wave that is waving in a sense. ठीक है? अब इसकी interpretation क्या है? We have to look at the interpretation of psi. For classical waves, everything is clear. We know that what is waving is the electric field. The electric field is interpreted well. We know that for sound waves, it's a pressure. Pressure, we know what pressure means, but we don't really know as yet what psi really means. So we have to interpret psi. Okay, this is easy. It's a function of position and time. We're talking about one dimensions only, so only one space variable x. It's a double derivative with respect to x, as in the left hand side of the classical wave equation, it's a double derivative. There are some coefficients. You know what h bar is? M is the mass of the particle whose wave we are considering, whose matter wave we are considering. Now let's move to the right hand side. One stark difference, one clear difference is that there's a time derivative, but it's not a second order derivative, it's a first order derivative. ठीक है, वहां सेकेंड ऑर्डर डेरिवेटिव था, यहाँ फर्स्ट ऑर्डर डेरिवेटिव है. दूसरा h बार है, उससे भी आपको कोई मसला नहीं, h बार इज क्लियर. एंड देयर इज एन आयोटा हियर, दिस इज कॉम्प्लेक्स, दिस इज द रूट ऑफ -1. So now we have an equation that is no longer real, that has a complex component to it, and this is enough to frighten the student. What is the wave function? Something unreal, because we're talking about imaginary numbers here. So this is enough to frighten or scare off a student, and it scared me off 10 years ago as well. But now let's try to understand this equation. And the best way to understand this equation, at the very beginning, when we first encounter this equation, is I propose a candidate solution. I propose a candidate solution and check whether that function is really a solution of this equation. ठीक है? So I propose a solution.
सॉल्यूशन होगा वो उस मैटर में रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा हूँ.
जी, अब वो सॉल्यूशन मैं एक प्रपोज करता हूँ. Suppose my solution psi is a some amplitude exponent iota kx minus omega t. Now instead of having cosine kx minus omega t, this solution is really a cosine of kx minus omega t plus iota sine of kx minus omega t. ठीक है, यही है ना, इसको अगर आप डी मॉरिस थ्योरम के तहत लिखें. So this is my candidate solution. Instead of having cosine kx minus omega t or sine kx minus omega t alone, I make a combination of cosine and sine and put in an iota with one of the components. So I have a wave function. This solution is called a wave function. ये अगर मैं ये लफ्ज लिखूं ना तो it will be unjust. So this is a wave function. इसको इंटरप्रेट हम बाद में करेंगे. So the wave function now itself is complex. This is something that should really be very counterintuitive. That is, our wave function, our solution in itself is complex. It's a complex number. Now suppose this is my candidate solution. Can I plug this solution into the wave equation and test whether this indeed is a solution? अब इसको टेस्ट करें जरा. नहीं पूरा एक्सपोनेंट को डिफरेंशिएट करें.
सिंपलीफाई करना दोनों तो h बार कैंसिल नहीं होगा, तो h बार ही है, h है कैश कॉस्ट
दोनों तरफ एच बार है, सिंप्लीफाई कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अभी लिखने का एक फ़ायदा होगा, अभी आप बाद में देखोगे। ये इक्वेशन और इस इक्वेशन को डिफाइन किया जाता है, तो दिस इज स्टेटेड, यू कैन नॉट डिराइव दिस इक्वेशन।
डेफिनेशन हो गई।
हाँ, हाँ?
इसका फर्स्ट आइडिया आया कहाँ से था?
मैं अभी आपको बताता हूँ। आयोटा कांस्टेंट
तो दोनों में सही आ जाता है ना।
इसमें ना जाओ, इस चीज को इस चक्कर में ना पड़ो।
इसको
हाँ, इसको इजी होगा डिफरेंशिएट करना। You can work with the exponent directly. There's no need to resolve it into cosine and sine. Work with the exponent directly. It's easy to differentiate an exponent.
Sir, is it fine?
h bar square भी डाल दो इधर।
So वो तो
ठीक है।
कंडीशन आ जाएगी।
तो हाँ, वो कंडीशन क्या लिखो जरा।
इस केस के y 2m इक्वल टू ओमेगा।
ठीक है, ठीक कर। ये तो ये है।
हाँ एग्जैक्टली।
इसको डिफरेंशिएट करो विद रिस्पेक्ट टू x।
What is the significance of putting h cut square and h cut on both sides? Like,
I'll tell you. So students are asking me what's the significance of putting h bars on both sides, h bar square and h bar. Of course I can remove this h bar and put in an h bar here, but I know the result, that's why I've put in an h bar square here and an h bar here, just to simplify things, because I know the physics behind it, and this is what I'm leading you to. The only advantage that I have over you is that I've seen the destination, and I'm leading you to the destination. That's the only difference between you and me. So that's why I put in an h bar square here and an h bar here. But let me solve this for you. The left hand side is clear. It's minus h bar squared over 2m partial over partial x a iota k exponent iota kx minus omega t minus h bar squared 2m a iota squared k squared becomes minus k squared exponent iota kx minus omega t h bar squared k squared over 2m psi xt, because I can write psi xt back again. It's a of into this exponent. So this is the left hand side. Now let's look at the right hand side. Iota h bar partial t a exponent iota kx minus omega t iota h bar a iota minus omega So this is the right hand side, and here we have the left hand side. Indeed, what we've proposed as a solution is indeed a solution, provided we make the identification h bar squared k squared over 2m equals h bar omega. And now you can realize the significance why I put in an h bar square on the left hand side and an h bar on the right hand side. Now does this condition ring some bells? Is it enough to tingle your minds? Does it resonate with something you already know? What is h bar omega? Energy. Energy of what? It's the energy of a particle. This has dimensions of energy. And what is h bar k? It's the momentum. So the left hand side is really, which is h bar squared k squared over 2m, is really momentum squared over 2m. And what is momentum squared over 2m? It's the kinetic energy. The non-relativistic kinetic energy. ठीक है? And what is the kinetic energy? It's simply the energy of a free particle. So now we have the kinetic energy equals h bar omega. So this means that if we have a particle which is free in space, then all of its energy will be kinetic. It will have no potential energy. So a particle is moving in vacuum, far away from all the stars, from all the galaxies. It sees no gravitational attraction. There are no nearby particles that can exert an electrostatic interaction. It's completely free. That particle has only kinetic energy. It doesn't have any potential energy. And the kinetic energy of the particle is given by p squared over 2m. And from de Broglie relationship, p equals h bar k. So the kinetic energy of the particle equals h bar omega, as it should be. So this has dimensions of energy, this has dimensions of energy. Therefore, things are starting to make sense. And how do they make sense? This is the wave function. This candidate solution satisfies the Schrodinger equation. It's a wave function, and this is the wave function for a free particle. तो ये एक आप समझ लें एक आवारा पार्टिकल है, ठीक है, किसी का इस पे बस नहीं चलता और ये फ्री है बिल्कुल, किसी तरह कोई फोर्स नहीं एक्ट हो रही इस पर. There are no forces acting on the particle. That is what is meant by a free particle. So if there are no forces acting on the particle, then that is the wave function of the particle. Now can we plot this wave function? Can we plot this wave function? How? Sorry? By? मैं समझा नहीं बात? उसमें भी नहीं होगा भाई, मैथमेटिका की बात कर रहे हो आप, उसमें भी नहीं होगा प्लॉट. कैसे प्लॉट करोगे एक कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर को? हाँ, कर देता होता है. इसके रियल पार्ट को अलहदा प्लॉट करना पड़ेगा, इसके इमेजिनरी पार्ट को अलहदा प्लॉट करना पड़ेगा. And the wave function will be a combination of a real part and an imaginary part. So if we plot the real part of this function, which is simply cosine kx minus omega 2, at a particular point in time it will look like this. और इसका कोई आगाज या अंजाम होगा? Will it start somewhere and stop anywhere? No. This is called a plane wave. It's a plane wave. Likewise, we can plot the imaginary part of this wave function. The imaginary part will be sine of kx minus omega t. So it will be 90 degrees out of phase with this. So this is the imaginary part of the wave function. So we can plot the real part of the wave function, we can plot the imaginary part of the wave function, and the total wave function of this particle is a combination of the real part and the imaginary part. And the wave function itself is complex. But how do we interpret this wave function? Infinity तक जा रहा है, space में भी, time में भी. तो ये देखो, ये हम आइडियल केस ले रहे हैं, हाइपोथेटिकल केस है, और श्रोडिंगर इक्वेशन इतनी डरावनी है कि only for this very simple case and a few other cases can we solve it exactly. But when we learn something afresh for the first time, we have to start from the simple things, and in this course we can only study the simple things. So this is a hypothetical situation, but this is the best we can do because this is exactly solvable. So now what is the interpretation of psi? Now the interpretation of psi is the following, and this interpretation was given by Max Born. Interpretation ये है कि if you have a wave function psi xt, you take the complex conjugate of it. You take the complex conjugate of this function and multiply it with the function itself without the complex conjugate. You multiply it with dx, a small interval in length. Then this object is equal to the probability of locating the particle within a distance dx, that is between x and x plus dx. So this is how we interpret the wave function. That is, you take the complex conjugate of the wave function, multiply it with the wave function, and then you multiply it with a small interval in length. You will get the probability of locating the particle within a distance dx, that is between x and dx at some time t. There is a time as well. Now let's use this interpretation. Let's use this interpretation and look at the plane wave that we've derived. We know what the wave function is. Now can you find this quantity for me? What is this quantity? What is psi star into psi? The psi star is the complex conjugate of psi.
कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट हमने बताना है.
हाँ, और फिर मल्टीप्लाई करना फंक्शन से. बताओ.
कॉम्प्लेक्स पार्ट को मल्टीप्लाई करके
हाँ, कॉन्जुगेट लेने के बाद कैसे करेंगे, क्या आंसर आएगा?
नहीं कैलकुलेट करके
चलो कर
ऐसे होगा ना, मुझे कॉस और साइन वाला लिखना होगा, उसका साइन डिफरेंट करके उसी के साथ मल्टीप्लाई करना।
नहीं डिवाइड
सिंपली कॉन्जुगेट लेना है। क्या आंसर आएगा? क्यों नहीं कर रहे? क्लास में साथ नहीं चलोगे, नहीं होगा कुछ। एनी आइडिया व्हाट? माइनस हो जाएगा। हाँ आगे करो। Yeah, this is extremely simple. कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट वेव फंक्शन का क्या होगा? A का कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट हो जाएगा A स्टार, क्योंकि हमें पता नहीं A कैन बी रियल और इमेजिनरी और कॉम्प्लेक्स। ठीक है, A स्टार लिख लेते हैं हम। और इसका क्या होगा कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट इस चीज का? जस्ट पुट इन माइनस साइन हियर। ये तो पढ़ा होगा आपने, एक्सपोनेंट माइनस आयोटा के एक्स माइनस ओमेगा टी इनटू द वेव फंक्शन इटसेल्फ ए एक्सपोनेंट आयोटा के एक्स minus omega t. This thing cancels out with this thing and you get A complex conjugate multiplied by A, which is simply A modulus squared. इसमें कोई कंफ्यूजन? इसमें क्या कंफ्यूजन है? ये कंफ्यूजन हल किए बगैर हम बाहर नहीं जा सकते यहाँ से। क्या कंफ्यूजन है इसमें? समझ नहीं आया? कोई बात नहीं। कॉन्जुगेट नहीं पढ़े हुए, कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट, कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर्स नहीं पढ़े हुए। ई आई थीटा, दिस इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर। व्हाट्स द कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट ऑफ दिस नंबर? इसका कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट ई माइनस आई थीटा हो जाएगा। ये नहीं पढ़ा हुआ? ये क्या है? कोसाइन ऑफ थीटा प्लस आयोटा साइन थीटा का कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट विच इज, अभी खामोशी से आप बात सुन ले मेरी। इसका कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट इज कोसाइन थीटा माइनस आयोटा साइन थीटा which is cosine theta plus iota, which is cosine of minus theta plus iota sine of minus theta, which is e iota minus theta, which is e minus iota theta. That's all I can do to prove that this is the complex conjugate of this number. So whenever you have a complex number in exponential form, this is in exponential form, you invert the sign of the iota and you get the complex conjugate. अब समझ आया? अब देखो ये वाला वेव फंक्शन है, इसका कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट यही होगा ना। अब A का कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉन्जुगेट हमें नहीं पता, क्योंकि A का हमें नहीं अभी पता। It can be a real number, imaginary number, complex number. So whatever it is, we write A star. So the end result is A star times A, which is the modulus of A squared. Now if I call this quantity, this is a probability. This is a probability per unit length. This is a probability per unit length. You multiply it with the length, you get the probability. So this is the probability per unit length. It's a probability density. P, it's a function of x and it's a function of time. Now the P comes out to be A mod squared. The probability density for our free particle comes out to be A mod squared. Does this depend upon position? Does it depend on x? No. Does it depend upon time? No. So if I have x here, the probability of detecting the particle is everywhere. It's a finite number. It doesn't depend upon x, and it's the same everywhere. It's the same everywhere. So I can plot the probability on this axis, the probability density, and what I would get is a straight line that exists everywhere in space. Therefore, this free particle with a plane wave function can exist everywhere in space. This means that and the probability density does not change with time. There is no time factor here. So the probability density is uniform in space and it's uniform in time, which means that this free particle, if it's a quantum particle, I measure the position of the particle. If I am some universal being who can look at the universe at the whole time, at one time, which can only be God, then such an observer can detect this particle to exist anywhere in space. So an observation is made, the particle can be detected at this point. So you can collapse the wave function so that it exists at this point. Another particle comes in, an identical particle. You can detect, you can measure the position and find this value of x. You can measure the position and find this value of x. And both of these, all of these positions have the equal probability because it's a constant function. So now for this free particle, which is described by a plane wave, the wave function is a plane wave, it has an equal probability of existing anywhere in space. Of existing anywhere in space. And this object which is formed by the complex conjugation of the wave function and multiplication by the wave function is a probability density. It tells you the probability per unit length. And there's one important property of this function, and that property is that if you have the probability density and you integrate it over all of space, what should you get? 1. This is called the normalization condition. So now we know that the wave function has some physical significance, and the wave function's physical significance lies less in the wave function but in the modulus squared or the probability density of the wave function. So this is enough motivation for the Schrödinger equation. In the next lecture, we'll take the next step on the ladder of complication and see how the Schrödinger equation is modified.